I love our theme music. It gets me fired up every time.
Every time, without fail.
Just like a corny white guy. Every time I'm just like, yeah, man, let's go. No, I don't do that. No, so we are in the this is the last show of the summer break. Next week we go back to the real world. After Labor Day, you know, as a guy who's always been in schools basically my whole life, I think of the day after Labor Day as the beginning of the real year. That's the first day of the real year when shit happens. And news has been kind of slow. It's kind of been nice, I gotta say. And I've been using this month to finish my book.
Great.
So I just wrote 2,000 words in the last 24 hours, and I'm getting close, real close. But so what I'm writing now, people will know I'm actually starting to write about Trump. So I'm bringing it all the way to the present. I started with John Adams and George Washington, and I'm bringing it all the way. The history of American foreign relations from the beginning to the present, although I'm going to end it kind of making this decision right now with the audience. When do I end this thing, right? Because you got to stop it at some moment. And I'm thinking February 24th, 2022, the beginning of the Ukraine war. Could go earlier. I don't know. But to me, that is like the break point. Most likely in world history. I think people are going to point to that as the pivot because we're all shifting so radically. But yeah, so I'm using the quiet month of August to finish this fucking thing. And
you know, I would do as your secret ghostwriter.
Yeah,
I would write the book before that, and then have an addendum about what Ukraine means.
Oh, well, I have plans for that.
Yeah.
Yes. No, there will be 4 subscribers or members. And we'll talk about what the platform is going to be. There will be constant updates to the book forever. Most likely on Substack or something like Substack, and that's going to happen pretty soon. So yeah, if you want to see the latest analysis on this stuff based on the analysis you've read in this book, yeah, you'll go there. But that's the big plan. And I think I'm going to have a lot of fun doing that. I'm really looking forward to get back into writing. It's what I originally wanted to do and be a journalist. As before I was a historian, and I was a reporter, and I was a reporter for some newspapers, and I reporter for the Staten Island Advance of all things when I was 20 years old. I was a night city reporter for the Staten Island Advance covering local news, including crime. It was wild. But yeah, so it's going to be great to get back to that regular writing thing. And I'm going to continue doing the podcast, of course, and this, of course, because I love this as well. But that's originally who I am as a writer, historian. So it feels good. I love it. I love writing history. I love immersing myself in it. I actually feel transported when I do it in the same way or similar way that I would by watching a really good movie. I actually do. Like, my mind relaxes and I feel I'm in another world when I'm doing research and history, even if it's about like really dry stuff, like, you know, nuclear arms policy or something like that. It's still like, because you get into the heads of these people at the time and you try to understand them in that moment, which forces you to put yourself as much as you can in that moment, or at least try to. And so you kind of like have to disassociate from the present, which is a lovely thing for many reasons. And one of the reasons I like it, especially nowadays, looking back in history and looking back at especially the political battles of the past, and not even that far back in the past, is that certainly until COVID and the trans issues, but maybe until the rise of Trump, you know, I always thought at least half the country was idiotic on every issue, but at least, I think this is right, I think at least every issue seemed to me to be important and interesting, sort of endlessly interesting and kind of appealing as an issue, as a question, like just the questions themselves, right? Like, should abortion be illegal? Like, that is just fascinating to me forever, you know? I mean, whichever side you take. But the trans thing and the COVID thing, I just find them kind of repellent, distasteful, gross. I don't want to talk about this stuff. Like, trans things. Gavin McInnes was right. It is disgusting. I mean, mostly, you know, I've said Dylan Mulvaney's cute, but like, kind of, sort of, not really.
Our trans fans are not disgusting. You know,
What's that?
Our trans fans are awesome. We have the best trans supporters, period.
Well, we had some dolls. We had like famous trans people, right? At the Icarus Fest. Yeah. So no, of course they're awesome and beautiful. Yeah. No, I didn't mean all, but I think there's been a lot of that. I think even a lot of trans people would agree with that there have been a lot of people who have leapt into being trans aggressively. So almost all of them, biological men, and did so almost, it seems to me, with the desire to be grotesque, because if you know anything about the way that attractive women look, you wouldn't wear what you're wearing, you know, for instance. I mean, it just seems to me like there's a lot of deliberate grotesquerie. And I just think I'm glad Gavin called that out. That's actually what got him canceled, wasn't it? That was the first thing that got him. What
publication was that? Was that Thought Catalog?
That was, I believe. Oh no, that was in Tackies.
That was in Tackies?
I think it was in Tackies.
Yeah.
90% sure. And anybody can Google that right now.
Okay.
But he wrote an article, I believe, it was an article. Amazing. Back in the day when people wrote articles instead of appeared on podcasts.
Mm-hmm. I think that was Thought Catalog. And I think that's what got him kicked off of Thought Catalog. And then he started writing for Tackies. I think 2014.
Really?
Right then. I'm pretty sure.
I had never heard of him on Thought Catalog. I barely know what Thought Catalog is. What is Thought Catalog?
It was back in the day. I mean,
was it right wing?
It was just wacky.
Because Tackies, you know what Tackies is, in my view? It's the most intelligent racist magazine. The most intelligent racist political intellectuals write for Tackies. Gavin McInnes is a racist. I mean, he is. Like, I mean, sorry. Like, she needs to embrace that. It's Jim Goad. He is. I like the guys, and I think they're totally fine. And I think that what they say is completely harmless. I disagree with it. But they do. Race realism is racism. Let's just call it what it is. Like, what exactly is the difference, fellas? Why are you hiding behind this term race realism? Just say it. You're racist, which is cool. Like, it's a it's a long honored tradition. But I'm pretty sure he wrote for Tackies, dude.
He did. I'm pulling it up.
Okay.
Media Roundup, the Gavin McInnes transphobia article. Yeah, it was modeled after the classical Greek agora.
He said he was I think the word he used was afraid. He even went softer than I just did. Like,
yeah,
he said I think he said afraid of them. He might have said they were gross, maybe, but
it's completely rational to be transphobic, was what you
were saying. Oh yeah, right, exactly, and it's a perfect argument.
If a la Caitlyn Jenner shows up, your father shows up to Thanksgiving one year and says, "I'm a woman now," you have every right to feel however you feel about that.
Sure. It's a radical change in one's life. It is a rupture, right? And if it's in someone you care about, or even you don't know, like a stranger on the street, it's still a rupture because you've never seen anything that looks like this. And if you're a heterosexual man like Gavin is, you are used to women looking a very particular way and not having Adam's apples. Mm-hmm. So, you know, I mean, it's jarring to see that still. And I live in a place where 1 out of every 3 people is trans, something like that. It seems like it. God, it's heartbreaking when I see friends of mine who have kids, like, and refer to them as they, their, and them, this, that. It's just so heartbreaking to refer to your own child that way. I mean, woof. Anyway, sorry.
Don't you know that we live in the most enlightened and rational time and the most liberatory time, and all throughout all of history, there are these millions of unsung people who were secretly trans who could never live how they wanted to live?
I mean, I gotta think there's something to that. I mean, I'm sure there were some people who fall under that category, right? Who are genuine. I do think there are people who were genuinely trans, meaning that they genuinely deep down feel like they are the other gender or sex. You can call that crazy if you want. That's fine. But I'm just talking about people who are authentic and genuine. They really believe it, right? They're not just hucksters, which is what a lot of the right is saying, right? There are a lot of they're saying basically they're all rapists, actually, who are just trying to get into women's bathrooms so that they can rape women and molest little girls. I think there are probably some of those, by the way, and I think I've been predicting for a while that there will be a fucking rape in a women's bathroom because of this stupidity. But anyway, I mean, I think it's, well, let me get back to my point, which is that I don't want to talk about this anymore. Like, it's a gross issue. It's not just that they most look gross, and mostly I'm thinking of trans women. To me as a heterosexual man, like, sorry, it just does. I don't like muscles. I never have. I never have liked women who look masculine, much less a biological male dressed as a conventional woman. It's also sexist. I think there's a whole lot to this that the right is correct about, which it is misogynistic, because the ways in which they imitate women are often stereotypical, or ways in which that most women would find offensive were it not wrapped in the trans movement virtue. Right? You're not allowed to criticize it, but I think a lot of women do find it offensive because it does portray, well, the TERFs are these are the women who do totally find it offensive and are feminists and they don't care. I think they're right. Like Dylan Mulvaney, the more I look at her sort of shtick, or she would just say it's her personality, whatever it is that I have seen, is a caricature of women. It is the ditzy, like girl about town. So wow. Anyway, but I do want to stop talking about it because it's also like a microscopic portion of the population. The thing is, I live among them, as I will say again. Like, everybody, please come to the East Bay. Come to the Bay Area, especially the East Bay. Oh lordy. I mean, I'm telling you, every damn barista is trans. Half the cashiers at Trader Joe's are trans. It's fucking, I mean, on the street, go outside, you'll see a trans person. It's that ubiquitous here. So of course, the more left you are, the more likely it is. And then I have several friends who have trans children. And as I've said before, I have one who's 14-year-old who got top surgery, or last I heard was scheduled for top surgery when she was 14. Oh my God. I mean, that shit is insane. Another reason I don't want to fucking talk about this anymore. It's extremely like the pictures of the scars and I can't even. This, I'd rather, honest to God, I'd rather look at war footage than like a child's chest cut up. Like, I don't know. That is like more disturbing to me than like pictures of Me Lai. Maybe that's wrong, but Jesus fuck. So I just don't want to talk about it anymore.
Yeah, it's
move on. Let's move on.
Okay.
I don't mean you and me. I mean, like the world, everybody, please. Like, how are we gonna, are they just gonna sort of assimilate like gays did? Is that ever gonna work? I don't think so.
Well, I don't know. I don't think it's sustainable long term. I don't know about them as a class, social class, but what I was gonna say is I'm sick of right-wing pages constantly sharing those top surgery photos, and it seems like an effort to demoralize themselves constantly.
Right.
Yeah,
that's what I mean. It's a depressing issue.
Yeah.
There's no part of it that is uplifting to me. Whereas like with every other issue, there's at least like an angle on it that I find to be kind of inspiring even, not no matter what, even war, right? The anti-war movement, or like resistance to war, even the worst stuff, or slavery, like runaway slaves or slave rebellions. Like there's always something in every issue that's like people are really, it's really attractive. There's nothing attractive, you know, with the gay rights movement. Like there was a lot that was attractive about that, you know, in all sorts of ways. Because gays are beautiful. What happened to just good old fashioned gays? This is like, I'm like a liberal Archie Bunker right now. That's like, that's what this is. If Archie Bunker were a liberal, this is what he'd be saying. I love the gays. Why can't we just have the normal old gays? So I found out something about this issue, Michael, is that I do want to keep talking about it, apparently, because I can't shut the fuck up. Let's talk about news.
Yeah. Well, breaking news.
Thank God the trans aren't in the news this week. Thank fucking God.
Okay, yeah. Well, breaking news, Trump has pled not guilty just today in the Fulton County case. No surprise there. And the famous mugshot got released. You want to look at it? We were talking about this last week.
Yes. I need a hit. Give me a hit. This is the pure shit.
Yeah. You know what?
Give me a bump of that pure shit, yo. Let me hit that. Oh man.
It's almost like it's exactly what you imagined it to be before it was released.
But a little bit better.
Yeah, a little bit better.
Even better. I would say even better. I knew it was going to be good, but like, motherfucker nailed this. Let me just say that right now. I got to just say props to the Don, because he nailed. I mean, look at that. It almost looks like they colluded with him because it's too good. And I don't mean just that he like looks good aesthetically, which he does for him. Like he must be really happy with the way he looks because he's so fucking vain. That guy is amazingly vain, but he's hilariously vain. Everybody's offended by it. I just find it hilarious. But it also like the theatrical fuck you expression is just like, it's too perfect. I mean, look at that shit. It looks like it's in a graphic novel. Like this is the moment. This is the moment when the villain like looks at the hero and says, "I'm gonna kill you," like, right? And there's a close up on the villain's face. That's it. Look at dude. Like amazing. So political theater, A++, all sides. Thank you everybody for providing this entertainment for us. Fannie Willis, Alvin Bragg, Jack Smith. I remember the names of the prosecutors. I mean, see, this is who's the fourth? If you know the fourth prosecutor for the fourth case, then you are the ultimate Trump geek. You beat even me. But the whole thing is just obvious theater, right? So it needs to be treated as such, which is why I'm talking about this in this way. Now, there's the issue of the all-out assault on due process and the First Amendment and the rule of law. And like, I mean, this is, right now that I think about it, I mean, this is absolutely the greatest assault on the rule of law since what? Civil War? I don't know. I mean, of course, the Democrats go on and on about, peaceful transfers of power, and he wouldn't allow this. Yo, that's what this is, guys. This is like violence, guys. When you force someone at the point of a gun to go take a mugshot and threaten them with prison, that's violence. So who's using violence against political opponents to stop them from running for office? I mean, this is so clearly Banana Republic behavior that I don't know what to say. I look around at my liberal friends and family and all the people who live around me, and I stare at them in the face, and I just don't. I see the sky as blue, and they don't. Like, what are we gonna do? They think he should go to prison. Can you imagine that? Like, what kind of sadism? Like, it's a passive sadism or something. To want anybody for those reasons to go to prison. And if he has not been indicted for treason, not this time, but but he could go to prison, I think, for quite a while. Technically, what is he, 82 counts, 90 counts? It's something. Did you know that he's been indicted on total? I think it's now 80 or 90 counts total.
Wow.
So if he's convicted of all of them, which he won't be, but if he were, theoretically, I take it he could go. I don't know, but he could. Yeah, I know it's something. It's either 80 or 90 counts. So I assume if he's convicted on all of them, that means he'd die in prison because dude's pushing 80.
Mm-hmm.
So they want him to die in prison. They want him to die in prison. Of all the people in history, all the people, think about all the worst people in history, world history, how many of them would you want to die in prison? I mean, sure, we can do the Hitler, Stalin thing, but that list runs out pretty fast, really. I mean, I don't know, like, especially if you're talking about, let's do like, a person has to be an absolute menace to society on a grand scale. I just can't believe that the desire is there for that based on his rude comments about vaginas. For a lot of these people, for the CIA, it's about him ditching NATO and ending the American empire. But for most people who are jerking off to these indictments, is that he's gross and crude and vulgar and racist and mean and talks about pussies and black African Americans, and right. So those people, the average American liberal democratic voter, you're not looking great morally. Not that I care about morality, but like according to your own morality, think about what you're doing. Like you're wishing it's maybe worse than death on someone for something at that level who never hurt anybody in your family or you, or not, certainly not directly. I mean, I don't want this for Joe Biden and Hillary Clinton. My goodness. Everyone knows what I think about Hillary Clinton. Franklin Roosevelt, greatest mass murderer in American history, hands down, no question about it. Do I think he should? Nixon and Johnson are second and third. But anyway, do I think he should have gone to prison for life if he had lived? No, not even close. I just want them out of office. How about that? How about just like removing them from office? You know, like in a democracy. I like that. Not that I care about democracy, but I prefer that to locking people in prison.
You wish they'd be working retail
for political, just anything. I don't care. Just other than being in the government, right? Like having power over me. That's all. As long as they don't have power over me, I don't care what they think or say. So it's incredibly sadistic. There's a sadism that, and again, I've said this many times with my parents, my mother especially, has always demonstrated, but not just them. I mean, every hardcore leftist I've known, like Marxists especially, they're violent people. They have violent fantasies about political opponents and the wealthy generally. Like they want to do violence to Republicans and the rich. Seriously. Here it is again. That's what this is. It's that kind of left-wing violent sadism. I'm sorry, that's what it is. And you just don't find it nearly. You find it some on the right for sure, but a lot less, I would say. Certainly among like American conservatives, they're less sadistic. They have their moments, but much less so. Like the left is always fantasizing about locking people up, and they did.
Well, back in 2016, when there was the lock her up chants about Hillary Clinton and this big fuss about how this is such a violation of norms to be going after your political candidates, and that this is something that people in banana republics do. They go after the political opposition. And then Trump got into office and didn't pursue prosecuting Hillary Clinton. He just completely dropped that as soon as he got into office. I thought that he would actually be returned the favor. I didn't think they'd actually prosecute him. I thought that they would leave politicians aside because if they were smart, they know that once you prosecute one, then you open the door for everybody to be prosecuted.
Because he'll retaliate, you mean?
Well, yeah, or next person who gets in office will retaliate.
Yeah, right. It initiates a cycle of this, right? An endless cycle, which is what someone was saying that either on the left or the right. I actually watched. I spent some time watching MSNBC the other day just to get a sense of what's happening over there, and that's what they were saying. Actually, is that this is Trump's fault? Of course, to them, of course, it's all Trump started this, and this is all him. But what they're predicting is that there will be an endless cycle of essentially political violence, or what would you call this?
Lawfare.
Well, I mean, specifically refusing to relinquish office peacefully, like whatever that is, and every 4 years this will happen, which, I mean, you could say it started in 2000 because people forget 2000, there was a contested election.
Yeah.
Then people really forget this. 2004, there was another contested election. And then 2016 was contested, Russiagate. And 2020. So, I mean, this has been escalating. And yeah, for a while now. The Democrats started it in 2000. Now, they might have been right. I don't know. I don't really care. And I haven't really studied that thing, the whole Florida issue. But it was them who started contesting elections. And then they did it again in 2004. And Mark Crispin Miller, who was on Unregistered twice, he wrote a whole book about this. He wrote a book about those elections being, according to him, overturned. What's the word? Rigged by the Republicans, right, to allow Bush to win. That's Mark Crispin Miller, professor at NYU, very famous guy. He now thinks that 2020 was rigged by the Democrats. To which I give, talk about the intellectual integrity. He is the only I didn't even know or care about the earlier ones, 2000, 2004, but he's the only person I know of who has made both those arguments, that those elections were, and he wrote a whole book about it, fraudulent, and these elections are fraudulent. That's wild. And everybody should look at Mark Crispin Miller's work immediately. That guy is on something very, very important. And he's also written about propaganda, the use of propaganda, and Operation Mockingbird, and all the ways in which discourse has been controlled in this country since World War II. Man, his work is stunning, and he's left wing. He's like a Bernie type, sort of, I think, not quite DSA, but somewhere around a Bernie type lefty. And academia, he got tenure before he went down this path. In fact, he used to be kind of lame and I used to not like him when I was in grad school. He was coming up too. And he would write about corporate malfeasance all the time and how corporations sucked. And I was like, what? Corporations are controlling our minds. All this anti-capitalist, anti-advertising bullshit. But then he kind of switched, and and then with COVID, he was the man. I mean, he totally was on point about COVID, and they tried to fire him. They couldn't do it from NYU. But anyway,
well, yeah. It's so interesting because his course was on propaganda, and that's such a charged term, and oftentimes propaganda can be used for good. If you need the entire population on page with something, you need to use propagandistic tactics.
Well,
yeah.
I mean, this is what I've been saying, and I'm going to keep saying this until someone listens to me. I was a COVID skeptic from the first day. I resisted and rejected the masks and the lockdowns from the first day. I think the vaccine was total fucking bullshit, and I always did. And the only reason I got it was that I was coerced into. I had to live where I was living. I had to get it. I had to get the J&J, but I would not have done it otherwise. But it's another issue that I want to stop talking about. But but there is something that still has to be said, I think, that has not, and I haven't really seen anybody say it, except this might be what Sam Harris meant. And Sam Harris isn't stupid. That's not his problem. He's just politically very naive. He only started studying politics after 9/11, and he's my age, so he doesn't really understand it. But anyway, which is that COVID was mild. It was, what was it, 0.07% fatality rate, or 0.7, less than 1% fatality rate. Much less, and that was clearly only if you were old or obese, basically, or had underlying conditions. So like, that's why that's why all of us on this side of the COVID issue could very easily, full-throatedly yell about the masks and the lockdowns, because we knew that shit wasn't going to kill us. What if it could have killed us? And by the way, now we all know on our side that it was a bioweapon that we all got. We now basically know that it was a fucking bioweapon, or, the byproduct of a bioweapon, something like that, at least came out of bioweapon research. So now what if it had been, obviously it wasn't like fully developed bioweapon, because it was a fully, I don't know, I would assume they would want to kill more people more efficiently with it. So what if they made like a really efficient bioweapon that leaked out of a lab somewhere? And these bioweapons labs are all over the fucking world. So what if those actually did leak one that could kill your ass and your whole family and everybody you know? That's possible. We know it's possible. No one denies that. So what happens when that happens, guys? We know the masks won't help. I get that part. I probably won't wear a mask even then if there's some like ultra deadly virus rampaging around with a 50% fatality rate, let's say, which is possible. What if it's 5%? You're not going to want to lock down at all? Is this right? You don't want to like shut down anything? You just want to let people run around, do whatever they want? I mean, I don't know, but this is a good question though, isn't it? Which I think Sam Harris meant to say, maybe deep down in his little brain, but like, that's something I have not seen the right grapple with. What about the next one? And this is why I am also screaming about how the other response to COVID must only be getting to the bottom of where it came from and exposing what most likely it was, which was the secret bioweapons program that the United States of America has been running since 1943. And as long as that thing continues to go in labs all over the world, producing bioweapons, including inside Ukraine, COVID or something way worse can happen at any second. And what if it is worse? Are we going to be screaming and crying about masks and lockdowns? Which is what I see so many smart people on the right doing still. Yes, it was bad. But what if the pandemic had really been bad? What if it really had been 2%, which originally people thought it was 2% at first? What if it was that? What if it was really 2%? Somehow I never got that. Did you ever I never even heard that. It's like, because I was never scared of it. But I don't know. But like, to me, those are the two things. And they're clearly connected. It's the bioweapons program of the United States. And by the way, it's only the United States, basically. I think the Russians have a really small program. But I think the vast majority of bioweapons labs in the world are run by the US or funded by the US, like Wuhan. We got to do that. We got to be on that issue all day, every day, because that can kill everybody. It's just as bad as nuclear weapons, for fuck's sake. And no one knows anything about where they are. We don't even know where they are or what they are. And we've got to talk about what we will do if one of these horrific things does leak again or is deployed again. What are we going to do then? Those of us who are not libtard Davos bug eaters. What do? We just keep screaming about lockdowns and tyranny? Like, not me. I mean, I'm going to do something other than that. I can tell you that. But so anyway, now we can stop talking about COVID.
Okay. Well, speaking of propaganda, this is a very graphic design heavy show. Donald Trump took the mugshot as a opportunity to go back to Twitter, which is now X, and had like a Kanye West album cover.
Yep.
The mugshot, August 24th, 2023. Election interference, never surrender. DonaldJTrump.com. That's all it is. That's his first tweet in over 2 years now. The last tweets were his ones telling people to calm down and not be violent on January 6th, which is hilarious that those are still up there.
So I need to say, Donald Trump is my nigga. And no one can take that away from me. Now, there has been a lot of controversy about some comments made by who are, let's see, who are the geniuses on the right? It was Dinesh D'Souza said it, who said that this is going to increase his appeal among black voters. It was Dinesh. It was like 2 or 3 like major right-wing journalist types. Dinesh D'Souza was one, but anyway. So of course, this is now being denounced as horribly racist, and by including, there's a very interesting discussion. There have been some spaces on Twitter. Sunny Johnson, who is on Unregistered, who I love, who's really kind of an amazing person. She's this like Republican activist, journalist, podcaster, but she thinks a lot of the party is flat out, straight up racist, like not dog whistle racist, but like racist. And there's this whole new crop of black Republican kind of MAGA types, I guess you would call them, although they're not necessarily like within the Trump movement, but they're sort of like dissident Republicans. And Maj Touré has been part of this. Felicia Killings is another one. There's like a good bunch of them, and they're also all from like black neighborhoods. These are not like totally assimilated people who grew up in white neighborhoods and went to white schools their whole lives. You know, there's been a lot of those in politics. These are people who like grew up in, for lack of a better word, the hood, and or at least like a black middle class neighborhood, right? So they kind of like have a feel for the culture that most black conservatives never have. I mean, if you know anything about the history of black conservatives, you know, they tend to be of the former category. I mean, actually, although Thomas Sowell and Walter Williams both grew up in Harlem, but that was like, they grew up in Harlem like back in the 30s, I think, or 40s. So like, it was a very different place. But like, you won't find very many black conservatives who grew up in the hood, the contemporary hood. Until recently, these people did. Anyway, and they hate, especially on issues of the cops and police violence, they have hated the Republicans on how they have treated that issue and are fucking furious about it. And it was fun listening to them. I think it was yesterday on a Twitter Spaces. Sunny and a bunch of them just going off on racist Republicans. And these are from within the Republican Party, calling like leaders of the Republican Party flat out racist and like cursing. Oh, it was hilarious. So I don't know. I think the thing is, though, even though I really admire that, because of course the Republican racism has always been incredibly stupid, but and worse. But you know what? The thing is, guys, before Trump was elected president and became, you know, pariah number one, and a lot of people know this, he was name checked maybe more than anybody in history on rap songs. I mean, rappers, and like positively, you know, rappers would compare themselves to Trump, for instance, as a very common motif in hip hop lyrics. Like, he was the man, and he was huge on a very popular television show. So lots of ordinary working class people have always dug the guy, and that includes a whole lot of black folk, which explains in part why 20% of black men voted for him. So we also know, what is the fucking horrific statistic about black men in prison? Is it 50%? I think spend time in prison in their lifetime. I think it's somewhere around there. It's insane. It's like some massive percentage of black men in the United States spend some time incarcerated in their lives. It's just ridiculous. But anyway, so yeah, man, they're gonna fucking relate to this, not to mention the whole history of cops and black folk in this country, which is real and legitimate. You know, I mean, it's so, yeah, of course it's going to increase his support among black voters. Like, come on. I don't know. Like, of course it is. And let me just say that it most certainly increased his support among this black voter right here, because I identify with that mugshot. I relate to that.
Well,
I feel it.
I've got a clip from a member of that constituency that you were talking about. Fulton County, Georgia is a heavy black area of the country, and there was a lot of black people out there on caravans showing their support for Trump as he was driving through. Here's a member of that coalition that Thaddeus was just talking about in his own words.
I'm here to support President Trump. You want to know why I'm here to support President Trump? Because they done did black men like this for decades. Make up charges and put them, so I know Trump is innocent. I support Trump against this corrupt, two-tiered justice system. That's why I'm here to show my support as a black man for Trump. And I'm wearing my shirt, Niggas for Trump 2024, and I mean that.
What do you think about the indictments?
Oh, it's a bunch of bullshit. It's going around the country. You know, Fannie Willis, she went to school with my sister. She full of shit. She was full of shit then. So she's a puppet for the white liberal that is controlling everything. She's in front, but the white liberal back there pulling those strings, telling her what to do. That's what I think about her, making a fool of herself.
Do you think it's going to help his election?
Of course it is. It's going to elevate him all the way. I think we should make Trump king. That's how I feel. We should make him king.
Wouldn't that be like kind of like communistic?
No, that's nowhere near communist. Now, we just going to make him king, but we still got our freedoms and rights and everything. He for that. Yeah, Trump for king 2024.
That's actually my URL. Own that URL.
It's a bunch of bullshit. Yeah, you should have heard Sonny yelling about that guy. Boy, they spent a good hour screaming about that dude. They hate his guts. I don't know.
Well, the new polling data came out, and what was it? There's the Fox News poll that has Trump at 20%. There's another poll that has him at 17% and other at 10% if it's between Trump and Biden only at 54%. So this is a massive shift, even past the progress that Trump made in 2016 and 2020.
Yeah. I mean, I've been watching the Hoteps for years, and you know, they make it abundantly clear why Trump has so much appeal among not the black intelligentsia, not the black middle class, but the streets. Like, yes, the black working class, what do you want to call it? The hood, whatever. Like those people who are not middle class, not part of the intelligentsia, not part of the elite. They like him. And there's a lot of good reasons for it. And one of them is that he is, and this relates to my work, is that he and they both buck bourgeois norms. So hip hop, for instance, which is kind of like the tribune of the black working class, very infamously, right, is not interested in bourgeois morality, right? They treat women like hoes, and they're all about violence, all about fucking and drugs, all these things that are like outright violations of our good old traditional American values that were established by the Puritans. Well, guess who else came along and did just the same thing? Donald J. Trump, talking about pussies and marrying a model, for God's sake. And like, you know, everything's covered in gold in Trump Palace, and he flies his own airplane covered in gold. And the whole thing is like, and he's, yeah. So he's just like them in that way. He's anti-bourgeois. And that's why all the housewives want to kill him. It's not why the CIA wants to kill him. The CIA wants to kill him because he wants out of NATO, or wanted out of NATO. But that's what they used, was his blackness. He's the first black president. I've said this since the beginning. That's what they used against him, was Trump's blackness. Because that's what the housewives of the country who run the country, who decide who's president anyway, which is why Gavin Newsom, I almost said Gavin McInnes, Gavin Newsom will be president.
Please don't speak that into existence.
I'm looking forward. I like that idea. Mm-hmm. I kind of want Gavin up there because I mean, it's just going to be so fun and easy to throw shit at him. You know, I mean, God, we are so armed already. I mean, that's the thing. Why does he want this? Like, he knows what's coming. He's been governor and mayor here for 20 years now of San Francisco and California. Look at San Francisco and California after what he's done with them, right? And dude, we got every hand grenade in the world ready for you, dude. So please step up, President, Mr. President. Oh, it's just going to be fun. And then like Don Jr.'s wife is his ex-wife. It's that. I want to know more about that. What's that about? I need to hear about Kimberly Guilfoyle and her choices in life. But
it's a small club. It's a surprisingly small club.
But there's gotta be something spicy in there. I mean, something. I mean, so
that's funny. They have the same haircut, the slick back.
Alex Jones calls him the American Psycho.
Yeah,
which is pretty good. He's similar to Christian Bale in that film. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And a similar personality too, I will say. I mean, to want to be mayor of San Francisco, governor of California, president of the United States, you have to be a psycho. I mean, that's all about. Think about how many people he's overseen the incarceration and killing of. Like, and he's not even been president yet. But San Francisco and California, like, that's all they do is kill and incarcerate people. We have the second biggest, I think it's the biggest prison system in the world is in California. Mr. Liberal. But anyway, I mean, just in the amount of control over so many people. How many? 45 million people here, something like that. Wanting to control people like that, wanting to manage people, wanting to coerce, control, incarcerate, and kill them. Someone's got to do it. I get that part. But those who do are scary to me. That's all. We need, I guess we need some enforcers in society, but like, I don't like them, and I'm not going to tell my daughter to ever marry one. They're psychos. They're sociopaths. That we need sociopaths to run society. We do. I think to some degree, you have to have people who are able and willing to do those things. And you have to deal with violent people, which requires somebody who doesn't mind hurting people. That's just the fact. But that's Gavin Newsom. That's every politician to some degree. And but he exemplifies it. He looks it because of that particular movie. He should get a new hairstyle, but he probably won't. Like, who do you know who wears their hair like that?
Well, I was saying Don Jr. and Gavin have the same haircut, so that might be
those guys are my age. Those guys are my age, basically. Gavin and I are exactly the same age, I think. Don's a little younger, but no, I can't think of anybody I know who wears their hair like that. Like, that's what does that say?
Oh, I think it was Shoe on Head who said she will support Gavin Newsom regardless of any of his policies, just because he has the affectation of a serial killer. And,
totally. Yeah, no, that's my point. That's where I'm coming from.
And that's how he'll win the woman vote, because women are enamored with serial killers and write them letters. And
how many of those guys? I mean, how much did those guys pull? Those serial killers when they were in prison?
When they're in prison, yeah.
Was the dude Richard Ramirez, the LA, what was he called, Night Stalker guy? Mm-hmm. He was the most, and yeah, he was the most famous for that. Like, he got all kinds of, what? It's not a good look for women. I was just thinking about that the other day. Like, that's a thing, that's a phenomenon among women, that they're attracted to serial killers. Oh, well, what's with the fascination among women for crime? What's it called? True crime podcasts.
Yeah.
Like, it's a huge thing among women, and it's a very gendered thing. It's very much women who are into true crime podcasts. Mm-hmm. What's that about?
Man, I could get sexist on this, but
it's too late. We're already there.
Okay. I mean, it's the allure of somebody who's dangerous, but also somebody who is like in prison and needs to be cared for. Ooh. So it's the perfect combination of certain instincts.
Sounds right to me, ladies. I think Brother Michael's onto you. No, I think that's probably right. And we're talking in generalities. Mm-hmm. You're talking about like women in general, not all women. right? You're saying there's a general tendency, right, Michael? General tendency among women to do those kinds of things, to be attracted to those particular characteristics, right? No,
Yeah.
but it's correct. Yeah. That's actually like an archetype in novels and films. Is that kind is the evil guy who has this vulnerable side who needs to be taken care of, like who is very attractive, and I think that's what Ted Bundy used actually, to like attract women. So anyway,
Yeah.
it's not a great look. It's really not a good look. I'm glad that my gender is not attracted to serial killers. Let's just say that. That would be embarrassing to me because they would suspect it of me. They'd be like, wait, that dude who just like was found with 30 bodies in his basement, you find him hot? Like, or that woman with, I don't know, whatever. Like, that's a little troubling.
What do you think about the rumors of Michelle Obama stepping
She's
in?
not a man.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, what?
Big Mike.
Speaking of trans,
Yeah.
There's a lot of right wingers who actually believe that. I mean,
Obama
anyway,
is gay. We know that.
That was interesting. I didn't see, none of us saw that coming. That was wild. It's funny that nobody knew about that until 2 weeks ago. And because that book has been out since I think he was elected. David Garrow is like a major biographer. He's like one of the elite biographers. He wrote the definitive biography of Martin Luther King. And it's he writes like 1,000-word biographies of these people. And it's been out since Obama, I think, was elected. And it's right there. It says that he was fantasizing about men, I think, exclusively in college or something like that. Or and then he had some thing with a guy, some kind of thing.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, does it matter? Not really, but it is interesting. It's interesting when you think about how he has portrayed himself and how he has structured his life, if he is in fact gay. Now, I know I've known many men, by the way, many who when they were in college and in their early 20s were primarily gay, but were really bisexual, but were primarily interested in men, but then changed and then ended up with women exclusively and got married. And like, I think that's much more common than we understand commonly.
JFK famously had
what's that?
JFK famously with Lem.
Maybe. I don't know. I never cared about that enough to look into it, but yeah. So that could be, that could be. And these guys that I've known, like, they seemed quite heterosexual actually to me. Like because I knew them after that phase. So like, I think it's very common. And I think that could be it. And anyway, who cares? So what? I mean, I guess it's like, he's not lying. Is it relevant?
Well, the scandal is, as Tucker was talking about on his interview with Adam Carolla, that this was an open secret that the media knew about at the time, but they didn't discuss it because they wanted access to the Obamas.
Oh, well, I thought it was just that they didn't want to embarrass him.
That too, yeah.
Well, it's odd that David Garrow let it slip because David Garrow is totally part of the establishment. I mean, David Garrow, the thing is, I haven't read the Obama biography, but I've read his King biography, and it's quite good. And it's very meticulous. It's something like 800 pages, something like that. It's so meticulous. Like if you want, it's the definitive also sort of catalog of King's life. And I think he might go about the job of writing biography in that way. He wants to make sure it is the complete catalog of this person's life, that everything that's ever been recorded needs to be in this one book. So that could be, he might, and maybe they just let it slip, like his editors at whichever New York City publishing house. And I know those people very well. I don't know, they let it slip.
Well, the rigor in editing and publishing has gone down quite a bit in recent years.
Well, that was yes, true. I mean, that was whenever he was elected, 2008, 9. I think it was soon after he was elected, when that book came out. No, it had declined a bit by then too. That's true. But I'm amazed that people read books. I'm glad they do.
Yeah. The other well, there was a lot of great clips from the Tucker Carlson interview with Adam Carolla. He went really loose on there, but he confirmed what we were talking about earlier about Operation Mockingbird, in that there are journalists who are explicitly getting talking points from the CIA, from intelligence agencies, and repeating them verbatim.
Yes.
I've never heard an insider journalist ever say this.
Yeah, we need to talk about this. Yeah.
Intel agencies have a big effect on what is broadcast on television and what you see on Facebook and Google as well. I mean, they're all up and down Facebook and Google, as I'm sure you know. And, there are a lot of anchors who, including people I know well and have worked with at different networks. I'm thinking of one in particular, national security reporter, who was just a mouthpiece for the Pentagon and the CIA and is knowingly telling lies on their behalf. That's very, very common, very common. And I can think of a number of people at CNN who I know for a fact are doing that exact thing. And so, I mean, they're reading government propaganda from the intel agencies knowingly. And I'm sure they've got some internal rationale that allows them to get up in the morning and face themselves despite having done something that dishonest. But I'm just telling you, bottom line, I know that is true. I'm not speculating at all. And in particular on the national security stuff, there are very well-known national security reporters, and I'm thinking of one female national security reporter in particular, who just reads lies from the national security state. And it's wildly frustrating. And it would just make me mad. I mean, even if I don't agree with the lies, okay, but even if I did agree with the lies, I would be offended because they're lies. They're lies. Like when CIA and the Pentagon were claiming that Bashar al-Assad used poison gas against his own people. Okay, there was no evidence that was true. I mean, maybe it was true. There was no evidence it was true. None. Zero. And I called them out, and they could not provide any evidence. And yet every national security, and it was a big deal. I mean, we killed a lot of people in response. We sent in missiles and killed a lot of people. We took human life in response to that claim. And it was, as far as I can tell.
I mean, what he just did there is like the most valuable 2 minutes of commentary you can do in journalism these days. What he just said there, it's breathtaking. When Tucker's good, he's spectacular, but not just good. He's so, just thank God. Thank God. I mean, now like we can build a movement around this, and we need to build a movement around this. I've been thinking for a while, since I became more fully aware of the extent of Operation Mockingbird, or whatever they're calling it. We know it was originally called Operation Mockingbird. It might have different names. There might be different programs, but the direction of the national news media by the CIA, by the intelligence agencies, especially on national security issues, editorial direction, telling newsrooms what to say about national security issues. I mean, we've got to expose this. And now the number one thing we got to do is expose it. We've got to expose it. And I don't know why he's not naming names. The first thing I want to do is name names. I know I would bet that of the people he's mentioning right there, I think I know two of them. The woman at the end is most likely Natasha Bertrand, who Glenn Greenwald's been all over her ass, and Max Blumenthal too. Jimmy Dore, all those guys. Like, she was one of the leaders of Russiagate in the media. I think she's on CNN now. She's gone from like the Atlantic to the Times to CNN, just gone up, and has been shown to have mouthed talking points that came from the CIA, from the government. And then the even juicier one, and this is just, it should be like, he should be fired tomorrow. Like Ken Delanian, who I think is CNN now. He's been around a few places, but he's been like top, like network national security correspondent for years. He was at the LA Times, and the LA damn Times reported after he left that yes, he indeed did work for the CIA when he was a reporter for the LA Times. So we know that Ken Delanian has worked for the CIA, and he is up there on CNN telling you what to think about Ukraine. And no one knows, and no one cares. we need to reveal. And Tucker, why are you not naming names, my brother? What are the names of these people? This is a grave crime. You said it yourself. It's a terrible thing that's happening. Why are you not revealing their names? I need to know what that's about, Tucker Carlson. That's strange to me. Let's talk about now Glenn Greenwald. Every time he finds out about somebody, he does this and Max Blumenthal. Those guys do that. They're great, you know, and that's how I know about those two. But Tucker's talking about how many there? Like many dozens, possibly. I bet it is. Well, the thing is, it's a blanket approach. I'm sure that every major establishment news outlet, the CNNs, I mean, PBS, it's so obvious. ABC, NBC, CBS, all that shit, you know, MSNBC. There's no doubt that the intelligence agencies just have a conduit to the newsrooms at every one of those outlets. So whoever's there is going to get like the memo. They do it through front groups. There's, you know, the CIA has all sorts of what are called cutout groups that they could get them from too. There's all sorts of like NGOs and shit that are running around DC that send out memos about what to think, and they actually are directed and run by the CIA. They can send, you know, the media can get it from there too. But it's so clear if you just read like the reporting on national security stuff, on war and peace issues, on foreign policy, they all say exactly the same thing. And like, how could that be unless they were being directed from above? I mean, I don't think there's a conspiracy on other issues in the media. I don't think the CIA or the government is controlling the newsrooms in any way on their reporting on like crime or race or economics or anything like that. Not direct control, but on national security, I think there's direct control. I think it's Soviet. I think it's a Soviet style system, like straight up. I mean, I don't think it's any different than Pravda on foreign policy issues, but it's an incredible scandal that needs to be revealed. And we need to have a movement to stop this. We need to demand that newsrooms do not do this anymore. And maybe even there could be a law. I wouldn't even be I don't know, maybe I don't know what I want a law. I don't know. I'd at least want a movement to ban the use, to ban, yes, there should be a law. Of course. What am I saying? Well, the CIA should be abolished for one thing, but we can start off with a law banning them from ever talking to the media. They shouldn't be allowed to speak to the media unless the media speaks to them first. Unless the media has questions for them. But no, the media, there should be none of this allowed. That should be a law like right away. But then the next law should be to abolish the fucking thing. There's no reason. It's the president's private army, although it turns out that they can turn against the president if they want to. So I don't know, which I didn't even believe. I used to brush that off as like conspiracy theorist nut shit back before Trump. I used to, come on, man. It's the president's army. Like, they're not going to turn on him. And then here comes Trump and here comes the CIA. And by the way, I just found the documents today. Yesterday. It's in a scholarly article I didn't even know about until just now. Jeffrey Sachs turned me on to it. Yes, so the entire Russiagate project, the attempt to smear Trump by blaming Russia for colluding, the entire thing began with the CIA. We have like pretty much the paper trail showing that that's who started it. And you can see Trump making statements about NATO in March of 2016. And then right after that, the CIA gets it in motion. And they go to Jake Sullivan, and Jake Sullivan, who's then running Hillary's campaign, goes to Hillary. Hillary goes to Fusion GPS. And then the Steele dossier gets going. But then you can see Brennan and Clapper, who are the intelligence leaders running the Russiagate thing from the get-go, and they of course were the main talking heads. Then they gave it to the FBI. Then they handed it over to Comey. Comey then sort of did the operations, but it started the CIA. This was the CIA's idea because Trump was threatening the empire. Rule number 1: don't fuck with the empire if you want to be president. We will do anything to get you out of there. Mm-hmm.
On that note, what do you think about the rumors of the RNC potentially changing the rules to go after Trump this time around if he's too popular, might win the nomination, because it looks like the Republican establishment is dead set on moving past Trump as soon as possible.
Well, I mean, I see no evidence of any movement whatsoever, meaning no base within or underneath the Republican establishment. Like, does Mitch McConnell have any fans? Like, I don't think so. You don't see any evidence of it at all. To me, it looks like all of the popular energy in the party is MAGA, and MAGA's got a lot of energy. It's got probably more energy than any faction in world politics right now. So they're going to determine, I think, ultimately what the Republican Party does. I mean, it doesn't matter what the establishment wants to do, what apparatus it wants to put in there to contain them. They're outnumbered if they keep growing. It's just that they haven't elected enough people yet. And they fucked up this last election. They didn't elect nearly as many people as we thought, but they're still there. And that's still where the energy is. They're only more energy now because of these indictments and because of that beautiful mugshot. Mm-hmm. Mac is growing and his coffers are growing. How many more millions did he raise because of that mugshot?
7.6 million in 1 week.
And counting. So, and all the indictments. I mean, we saw like the Alvin Bragg indictment. There was a spike in popularity for Trump right then that hasn't gone down. Like, people love that he's getting indicted and they want to rally around him. So MAGA is getting bigger and stronger, and Mitch McConnell is blanking out in the middle of press conferences now. So they're gone. Does Kevin McCarthy have like a base of support that'll protect him when MAGA comes to get his ass? No. Like, I don't see it's about what the masses want, and the masses are going to get there. It's just they don't have enough people in Congress yet to have the vote on anything. But that's just now. They're just starting. Remember, Trump was elected 7 years ago. This is a very, very young movement. And again, they're not slowing down. In fact, they're speeding up, and the persecution and prosecution of Trump is only accelerating that movement and expanding it. And we have blacks moving into it now, and Mexicans have been moving into it for a long time. And shit, dude, like, they're here to stay for better and worse. And so it doesn't matter. I mean, this coming election and the one after it, the establishment will probably control things. But after that, I'd say within 10 years, that's a different party. Doesn't matter what kind of apparatus they put in there. Mm-hmm. I don't know. What do you think?
Well, I wouldn't be surprised if one of the indictments lands a charge and he gets convicted on one of the counts, and the RNC says we can't have somebody convicted of a crime be our nominee.
Okay, so yes, sorry. I guess that could work, I guess, for now, since the base does not control. But again, though, I mean, they would face they would face such a revolt, such a rebellion. I think it would be. I think so MAGA can do much more damage to the Republican establishment than it can to the Democratic establishment for obvious reasons, right? They're just closer to those people. They're in the same party. There's the apparatus. They're connected by the apparatus so they can get at them. I don't think they're going to pull shit like that. I mean, that would be bold, but that could also be, if they do that, that's the end of the establishment. Yeah. That's going to kill them. That's right. That's what it is. That'll be like some French Revolution shit, where the king goes too far and like locks up the opposition or whatever.
And that's what Pence has been saying. That's what Pence and Chris Christie have almost implicitly been saying, is that like Trump is completely disqualified and we need to move on.
Oh yeah, no, it's clear what they want. No, I know what the establishment is all about. Yeah, and they're totally unified in their message, and no one gives a fuck about them. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's the thing. Like, the guy who is now, the guys who have any juice at all among his opponents are Vivek and DeSantis, and they're both basically just safe Trumps. Like, they're just both like safe versions of Trump, right? They're not repudiations of Trump. And Vivek is pro-Trump. Yeah, and DeSantis was pro-Trump. Until he needed to run against him for president. So, there is no repudiation of Trump going on. The anti-Trumpers in the Republican Party got nothing. Like, who is that? I have not seen one rank and file Republican say that they are anti-Trump. Not really. Like, I've seen lots of office holders. I've seen, Republican activists say this, but like just a regular Republican voter say they're anti-Trump doesn't have you. I don't know.
Well, I've seen MAGA people go after Trump and be tired of Trump, mainly because he's the father of the vaccine and that he was pro-lockdown while everything was going down.
That's like a MAGA reason to be opposed to Trump. That's like pure MAGA. That's like dark MAGA.
That's pure uncut MAGA.
That's pure uncut MAGA. Yeah, because Trump and Jeffrey Tucker is the one on that one. Boy, he is after Trump's ass for that, for the vaccine and for the lockdowns. And he is reminding everybody, the right wing again, real stupid on this one. They totally like ignored somehow that Trump fucked them more than anybody because he was the fucking president. Hello, like everything that was federal that came out of it, including especially the vaccine, was Trump's doing. That was your boy did that shit. You people like waving your flags in the street, against the mandates. Radicals, your boy was the chief enemy, arguably, because he was the president.
And to your point, if an opposition to Trump is going to get any popular support amongst the right-wing base, they have to attack Trump from the right on that. And DeSantis or Vivek could, and they haven't.
Ooh, smart. I hadn't thought of that. Right. I wonder, they have not. Why isn't DeSantis? He should be the one.
He should, but he's an establishment guy, and he'd probably do the same thing if he were president.
God, man, the establishment just rots people's brains. It just stops them from doing the rational thing. It's like it's religion. Like you have this commitment to the establishment, to like the status quo, to the way things are, to the party system, to the way the government is structured, to like the general like mainstream political culture of the time. You kind of want to just conserve that shit, So in general, so you just don't go places that you see very clearly you should go. It's the really basic, fundamental, cowardly, conservative position. It's like, I'm scared. Don't want to change too much, even though I see this thing right in front of me. I don't want to say anything about it because if I do, we could have a revolution. Something radical could happen. We could have some radical change. It's fear of radical change that's stopping him because he knows. God, that dude's, he is just tanking. Good Lord. That's ugly. Ron, and he just got no talent as a politician. That the smile on stage, that was rough. And like looking at Vivek to see if Vivek was raising his hand before he raised his hand, that was just. And of course, all these Republicans who are so concerned about masculinity, they see that they're like, goodbye. It's all Republicans talk about is who's beta and who's not. And it's like, oh, now we know about you.
It's the most homoerotic movement in all of politics.
No, it's worse. It's like homo subordinate or something. It's like you're the twink in this, like Jesus Christ, man. You're not just gay. Oh my Lord. Bad luck for Republican.
Yeah. Right. Last story here, maybe. This little kid, this 12-year-old Jaiden, is the new darling of the right now, and libertarians for wearing the Gadsden flag to school. And he just got suspended, and I think he worked it out. But this little interaction between him and the teacher and his mom went viral. And I think you have a unique take on what the Gadsden flag actually stands for. But this was him in that parent-teacher meeting.
So let me make one thing very clear.
Yeah.
Fuck that teacher, fuck that school, burn the school to the ground, burn that flag with it. Don't ever tell a child what he can or cannot say. Not in that way, not about politics. Don't tell anyone. I'm certainly not a kid. If he had worn a shirt to school that said, I support slavery, they should have let him fucking wear it and not said a damn thing, in fact. I don't care what it says if it's about politics, even if it's an endorsement of slavery. So fuck the whole system. But Christopher Gadsden was a major slave owner. Okay. Now you might say, well, yes, so was Thomas Jefferson. Does that mean we should not care about the Declaration of Independence and all of his ideas about liberty and equality? Good question. Well, happens to be a very interesting, I think, argument that it is probably more than just a coincidence that the great tribunes of freedom and democracy and liberty in the 18th century often tended to be slave owners or direct beneficiaries of slave owning, like Northern merchants in Boston. Many of the founding fathers were merchants, and cotton trade was a major part of their business, right? So almost all the founding fathers benefited tremendously from slavery, meaning they amassed tremendous wealth from slavery. And, as an intellectual, what we want more than anything is a nice fat economic cushion so we can sit around all day and talk and think and read and say pretty things about things like freedom and liberty and democracy. The point being that these ideas that we love so much, that come from these men we love so much, were probably enabled by their ownership, directly or indirectly, of a whole lot of human chattel. So I do think it's relevant. I think these people at this school could never have made that argument because they're fucking idiots and they're just authoritarians and fuck them and burn down their school. It shouldn't exist in the first place, is my position on that. However, there is an interesting thing to be said here, and this is not a reason to therefore reject the ideas of "Don't Tread on Me" or of the Declaration of Independence because they're slave owners. That's not my point. Dumb lefties might say that. That's not my point. But I do think we should think about it. And maybe not so blithely, gleefully put out there things that right underneath them was slavery. It's true, guys. I'm sorry. This is not what Ibram X. Kendi's saying. He's interested in shaming you. I'm talking about actual history. I'm not talking about shame. I'm not talking about feeling any shame. Fuck that. No, none of us enslaved anybody. None of us support slavery. I'm just talking about, we're picking heroes, right? And Jaiden, he's 12. Do you think he figured all this out by himself? You think he came to the Gadsden flag all by himself and that was his choice? And you don't think his parents had something to do with that?
Well, this clip was shared by the author of Tuttle Twins, which is a libertarian children's book, and the mother had read him those books as he was growing up.
Right. I know some of those guys around the Tuttle Twins. Yeah. Again, I'm not mad at anybody here. But let's just take a moment and think about this. It's about choosing your heroes, and that's one of many reasons I wouldn't choose Christopher Gadsden or Thomas Jefferson as my hero. There's other reasons too we can get into as well, but it's not that they were bad people because they owned slaves and were racist, because it's true that certainly by the time of Jefferson and after, everybody was racist essentially in that class and below. But it's that, where does this liberty come from, right? And if its basis economically is slavery, what does that mean? I don't know. It's kind of an open question, but let's not be so talk about how it's all about free market shit. And no. All right. That's it.
Okay.
We're done with that issue too.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. Don't tread on me. Of course, I love the sentiment, the isolated sentiment, which is what the t-shirt does. It isolates it. You don't know who Christopher Gadsden is. You don't know that it's from his flag. You don't know the context at all. But again, it resonates with people on the right because of its attachment, its association with the American Revolution, which they also valorize. And that's another reason they need to read more about the history. For one thing, the founding fathers were, to a man, arch imperialists, and they acted on it. They didn't just talk about it, they acted on it. There's so many reasons to for a libertarian or anybody who likes individual freedom and liberty to valorize the founding fathers. They were also puritanical as fuck in terms of their public pronouncements. They were all drinkers, and a lot of them are fornicators, but in terms of what they had to say about these things, ridiculously puritanical and moralistic, and led to a tremendous crackdown on all sorts of things in America that were quite authoritarian, just very authoritarian crackdowns on drinking and prostitution and sex generally, and lots of crackdowns on freedom because of the founding fathers and their ideas about morality and culture. They hated dancing, they hated all this stuff. So just so many reasons to dislike those cats. And it's all of them, by the way. There's not one of them that I think is cool. It's just, I mean, it's not like I was looking for this, but I didn't even know it was there. I did the research and I kind of stumbled upon it. The racism stuff is well known, of course, about the founders, but the imperialism stuff, it's only me and Robert Kagan. We're the only ones, as far as I know, have ever done this work, but it's right there. It's right there in all their work. You just have to put it together. You can see it.
Or how they behave as soon as they get in office.
No, it's about what their ideas were. I'm talking about like their diaries.
Yeah.
I'm talking about their letters. I'm talking about their letters to their wives. I'm talking about mostly private correspondence and some public stuff too. But I'd say more than half of it's private correspondence about what they think about blacks and what they think about empire. Mm-hmm. And what they think about like Puritanism. I mean, it's all there. It's plenty of it too. It's not even like it's not scattered. There's all sorts of evidence of this. They suck. Libertarians should not like the founding fathers. They need to get over this, and they need to do a little bit more reading. But once they read my book, they'll figure it out.
That's an interesting point, as far as at least being honest about the intellectual tradition that you're borrowing from or that you're honoring, and where it comes from. Because I think there is a way to square that circle and see a capitalistic private property ownership thing from these slavers being completely consistent with libertarian ideology.
This is another thing. I mean, in this country, and you could say in England too, but certainly in this country, capitalism was absolutely intertwined on a very deep level with slavery too. You know, the cotton trade, as I said, was one of the founding trades. It's one of the founding industries of American capitalism. Remember, there were only a handful of industries in the early 19th century, and one of them was cotton, and another one was textiles. And the cotton in the textile mills in New England, which was one of the first industries in this, I think it was the first major industry in this country, that was all slave-made cotton. Yo. So these lefties who run around yelling about this shit all the time, and they drive me insane. And this is like the new trend in American history, is to talk about how capitalism and slavery are one and the same. And this is the evidence for it. It's like, no, they're not. They're actually opposite. They're antagonistic systems. No, one is wage labor and one is slave labor. That's fundamentally different. Fundamentally different. There are many other differences as well. But I'm saying that those two systems were exchanging with one another for a while, for about 50 years or so. They were exchanging, and that's possible. I mean, you know, the United States exchanged things with the Soviet Union and other communist countries, and has, you know, you can trade with communist countries. And that's what was going on with, you know, the Confederacy was in a sense a communist country, right? That's what, you know, slave labor, same thing in the Soviet Union and in the South. And they benefited from each other. That's all. And that's happened before. So it's, yeah, they're fundamentally different systems that were in partnership. But that's another thing. So, you know, it didn't emerge out of this like sylvan paradise of this, you know, golden free market where there are no restraints and no government and no cops and no nothing. And everybody was just running around like growing things and then giving it to their neighbor in exchange for money. Like, no, there's all kinds of coercion from the ground up, like heavy coercion from the ground up in the origins of capitalism in this country. So again, there's another thing that libertarians just fuck up on all the time. And a lot of just straight Republicans do too. They romanticize sort of early capitalism, and capitalism generally is kind of growing organically out of these free conditions. Like, no, I wouldn't say it needed slavery. That's where the left goes too far. They'll say that capitalism required slavery. That doesn't prove it. That the first industry, textiles required it, but like,
that's an interesting admission on their part too, that they think that.
Well, they're anti-capitalist.
Well, that they believe that this capitalist prosperity required slavery.
Why is that interesting?
Oh, I think it's a confession that they themselves believe that slavery is a good thing that produces.
Oh shit!
Yeah.
Oh, we can't have good things without enslaving people.
Yeah, I think that's
Yeah, they might. Hadn't thought of that. Yeah, so every time people open their mouths about slavery, it's the most painful thing. And I will say another thing. I'm gonna say it, man. Like, so many Black people have told me over the years that I am wrong. I am wrong about my history of slavery because they're Black and they know. Because Black, when you're Black, you're just born with a knowledge of the history of slavery. It's right there. They put a chip in your brain. The Encyclopedia of American Slavery gets put into your brain when you're. I mean, but I hear it from actually fairly intelligent people. They'll tell me this too. But so many people think they know what slavery was in this country, and they are so off, so wrong in so many ways. Did we cover it all?
Yeah, we just got one quick super chat from Rumble. Just Fuego de Barcero, our big subscriber over at Rumble, just saying
Thanks,
he's
man.
giving us our money's worth. That's why he tunes in. So thanks.
That's right.
Yeah.
Thank you, my friend. Appreciate that. Yeah. Now we put the work in here because we're Puritans.
Yeah. It's emotional labor.
I'm just thinking about Jaiden Rodriguez.
Yeah.
And, I'm like, the kid's curious, or maybe he's just interested in pleasing mom. Again, we're also using, sorry, my right-wing friends. I don't love using kids as political props either. And that's what this is too.
Yeah.
I mean, especially using your own kid as a political prop. Now, it's possible that Jaiden came to these things on his own. It's possible that he stumbled upon like the Ron Paul Liberty Classroom all by himself one day on the internet, but I doubt it. I mean, it's most likely he got it from his kids. I mean, from his parents. So I don't dig that, and by the way, the right wing has been screaming about the left using kids for political reasons lately. Well, this is the right wing version of it, and I like it. So let's think again.
Totally.
I'm like the old uncle for the right wing. I'm trying to teach them things.
I think we're good to wrap up there. It's 8:30.
All right, man.
Cool.
Excellent. Oh, right.
Yeah.
Now
Yeah.
we're going to Unregistered Live, which is our weekly hangout after Unreported. Michael and I go hang out on Zoom with all of the patrons of Unregistered. And if you want to join us, go to patreon.com/unregistered right there on the screen. Join up, click on the URL, and I'll see you in the Zoom room. Michael, you're the man. You're the best.
Yeah.
Best host on the internet.
If this show keeps getting wilder, we can't say we have anything more wild on the paywall. So
did we break it this time?
We did, yeah. We broke it.
Oh shit. Here comes YouTube.
Yep.
All right.
Peace.
Peace.